Hi everyone, welcome back to Membrain. Today our guest is Calum Upton, a PhD student at Aston University in Birmingham, United Kingdom. Calum and I met in the lab at Aston. He was just starting his PhD journey while I was finishing mine. Despite our different stages, we connected and kept in touch. Calum is an incredibly dynamic PhD student, and that's why I think I wanted to have him today in this podcast. He doesn't just focus on his lab work, but he is actually actively exploring various areas, both academic and non academic. He participates in numerous events such as conferences, pitches, and he has been expanding his network, which I believe it is extremely valuable. Callum, in my opinion, exemplifies the importance of self discovery and planning during your PhD. Actually, in the previous Membrane episode with David Mensch, also known as Papa PhD, his career advice was to prepare for your future while doing your PhD. Callum embodies this advice perfectly. Let's meet him. Hi, Callum. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks for inviting me. Excited to be here.
Would you like to talk little bit about you, to introduce yourself?
Yes. My name's Calum. I'm in the third year of my PhD at Aston. And my PhD is sort of biotechnology, biochemistry related, with ties to both sort of industry and the academia side as well.
Callum, so yeah, you started doing your PhD, but you do much more than that. So I'm actually very curious about what motivated you to start a PhD. Was this a strategic plan or was more something like I was not sure about what else to do?
So, sort of, you're on the right lines. I I really enjoyed my master's project in particular. So I always knew I loved university. I didn't want to leave it after my undergrad, so I went on to do a master's. And it was during my master's project when the thought of science as a career clicked for me. So my project, it was predominantly structural biology, and towards the end of that project, I was able to constitute a 3D structure of the protein I was looking at. It was a small part of the cochlea, and it was at that moment that was a really kind of lights on, like this is really cool sort of moment, because it's the first time the world had ever seen this piece of information, or the shape of this small part of the cochlea that we'd taken in isolation. Um, and I remember the sense of accomplishment and the sense of achievement from that one moment. Probably one of the I consider it one of my greatest achievements, but also one of the largest sense of accomplishments I've ever experienced. And I guess I was trying to chase that same feeling of, wow, this is really cool. I'm such a legend. I've just discovered something new. Um, and that's what led me to want to do a PhD after my masters. I ended up having a few years out as a result of COVID and
Hmm.
um, not being in the best financial position when I finished my masters due to far too much drinking as an undergrad. um, so I had a few years out, but I always, in the back of my mind, always knew I'm going to come back and do a PhD. So 2021, September 2021, I started my PhD here at Aston, wanting to uh, replicate that experience of, wow, this is a new piece of information that I've discovered, and replicate that sense of accomplishment.
Well, I gotta tell you that you are actually really lucky in your masters because working in science and having this sense of accomplishment that soon, that fast, is not very common. But it's
Yeah,
amazing because when sometimes it happens, that's the reason why people keep working in science. There's something that has to happen in your life that makes you like something, like to work in an
yeah.
area or keep going. And it was I think it was really good for you, and you were really lucky. But so you started your PhD. And then you don't do just your lab work, right? You have much more. You do participate in other activities, as I mentioned. So um, you are very active as well on social media, on LinkedIn. You've started recently a blog. Um, and do you do this because you naturally like it? You just started doing this because you naturally like it, or because you were actually thinking of a strategic plan
Yeah.
to try to figure out what's next?
I'd say a bit of both. So I'm very much driven by that sort of novelty seeking behavior type thing. So when I see, say there's a cool event coming up, or it's something, um, say it's in the, we'll give an example, say it's in the policy space, it's a cool event, I get to go to the Houses of Parliament, um,
Okay.
see this advertised on email or through various sort of society newsletters, that kind of thing. Um, if it's a new experience, I will instantly, I'll sign up straight away because I know that's what I'll enjoy. I'm going to gain value out of that particular experience. Um, so that is when I'm doing all these. I guess we could call them kind of extra curricular activities. That's kind of aim number one: is am I going to enjoy it? Um, is this going to be something that can expand my knowledge, I guess. And
And if you
then,
like it, no, you can.
yeah,
If you try different things, you can see what you like more to do. Or
yeah, I think you don't know you're going to enjoy something until you've tried it for the first time. So how do you know you're gonna um, you might yeah how do you know you're going to enjoy writing until you try and write your first paper or you start writing a blog? But you just have to try it. How do you know you're gonna really hate um, policy if you don't go to a policy event? Um, And I think you mentioned as well about how it could potentially be strategic, and it definitely is because the whole time I've been aware, um, all of these things are also going on my CV. So whilst I'm still gaining value, I'm learning from them, I'm enjoying the process. All these extra things I've done throughout my time here at Aston, on top of my lab work, all of that's it can go on my LinkedIn. It can um, bulk out my CV. It can expand my portfolio. It's things that future employers are going to look at and hopefully look at favorably. Because I know, because I used to work in recruitment prior to starting
oh,
my PhD, and I know it's things that
hmm.
I would look at. It's not just experience or education. Imagine if you've got 2,000 candidates and they've all got the same experience, they've all got the same education. You need something that's going to set someone apart. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
definitely been in the back of my mind as I've been going to these events and participating in extra stuff on top of the lab work.
That is actually very interesting. I didn't know you had that experience because it actually you opened your eyes for, okay, if we have 100 candidates with a similar experience, what is going to make me um, be the
Stand
chosen
out.
one
Yeah.
selected, at least for an interview?
Mm.
And so, out of curiosity, do you have like a group of activities that usually HR people look at? Well, probably this varies based on the job that you're applying for. How do you feel that this works?
Yeah. I think you're right in that it's the job, the kind of the extra stuff that you've done that can go on your CV. It probably should be somewhat relevant to the job you're applying for, but alternatively, if it's not somewhat relevant, you need to have learned something from it or gained some value from it that will also apply to this role that you're interested in or role that you're applying to, even if it's in some translatable uh, element. So I write a blog, for instance, which you mentioned
Hmm.
earlier. Um, so after my PhD, one thing I'm thinking of doing or considering is patent law. and that role in and of itself requires a hell of a lot of writing when you're drafting patent specifications. Um, so I am mindful that these extra, this writing a paper, writing this blog, they're things that are demonstrating to future employers I have writing capabilities. Um, Taking part in more commercial events or networking with spin out or startup CEOs. Um, that's improving my, I guess, commercial mindset, my understanding of the enterprise process, particularly from a science perspective. Um, and that's all things that would go into the role of a patent attorney and hopefully make me stand out in 2,000 applicants for one position.
What you're saying, it makes a lot of sense, and I realize that, like, when I'm scrolling on, when I'm on LinkedIn, I see a lot of posts about the fact that PhD students don't know how to sell themselves. Essentially, when we want to get out of academia
Hmm.
and try what's other jobs, um, and they always say that we don't know how to sell ourselves, our capabilities, or what we have been learning. What do you think about that, and where do you think, if you agree with it, where do you think that we fail the most?
Um, I think you're 100% right. A lot of PhD students, certainly my peers, um, almost try and let their work do the talking, if that makes sense, which is great, and hopefully you have a substantial amount of work to get your PhD. Um, but I think trouble is everyone's in the same position. Everyone applying for postdoc positions, post PhD, for example, all have the same substantial amount of work, um, kind of on their CV moving forward. I remember seeing a statistic recently. It was something like for every 10 PhD students, there's only 3 postdoc positions. For every 10
Okay.
PhD student, there's only 4 industry positions. So if you're wanting to stay in uh, academia or you're wanting to go into industry as a researcher, then you're competing against there's 7 positions there that you're competing, um, that 10 people are competing for. So you need,
Three won't have opportunity.
yeah, 3 people aren't going to have opportunities. And I think unless you've got something, some kind of personal development, then you might be one of the 3. And I do think a lot of PhD students um, aren't proactive about
Planning
taking the
the
steps, yeah, to develop or taking the steps to learn how to sell themselves. Um,
We tend a lot to just work in the lab, right? And we work in the lab because we have to do our research. We have a rationale that we are exploring. We want results. We want to publish. So we are in the lab doing the experiments. The experiments most of the times don't work. So most of the time we are just troubleshooting
yeah,
and trying to figure it out what's going on, which in many cases increase the amount of time working, the amount of hours working, and all the rest is put apart. Actually, I remember a lot of people usually complain, oh, I have to go to this conference, I need to prepare this poster,
yeah,
and I don't have time to prepare this poster, and I have to present in this group meeting, and I don't have time to prepare a presentation, I have much more to do. And then, like, someone like you comes, is like, you are much more active, and that's what actually that's the advice from people that have done the same as we did, like have done the PhD, and they just say that after it, they say, like, you
yeah,
just work in your on your future while you're doing your PhD. These networking activities, these conferences, these seminars, these presentations is what makes you get to know new people and what's going on, and developing other skills and selling yourself, and that will open the doors for you in the future. But why this is, I don't know. Why do you feel that do? I don't know. Why do you feel that people tend to ignore these
yeah.
other? things that we can do and maybe we should do while doing your
I
PhD?
think for a lot of people, they don't enjoy um, networking, or they don't enjoy going to these events, or the work that um, you have to put into preparing a presentation or a poster, or the nerves that come along with presenting or presenting a poster or a presentation. Because certainly within the STEM subjects, PhDs attract. Um, I guess you, yeah, slightly more introverted person. I think it would be fair to say,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think people procrastinate, and as you know, as a result of maybe being slightly inherently more introverted, people tend to procrastinate. Uh, you know,
Perfectionism, maybe.
the sort of the develop like the personal development side or the career
Mm-hmm.
development side, such as having loads of conferences presented at, or having demonstrable um, sort of extracurricular experience. It helps. I mean, it helps for me that I'm quite extroverted. I'm quite social in and of myself. I enjoy going to conferences and meeting lots of new people. Um, I don't so much enjoy the presentation aspect, but I enjoy the feeling you get after a presentation when you've still got a little bit of adrenaline, but then you've got all that excitement of it being done, and the endorphins from kind of,
Like then I did it.
yeah,
I faced my fears or I
you
faced
face it.
something.
Yeah, I
It's
enjoy that feeling. I think my advice for people that aren't the same and maybe are a little bit more introverted, really get anxious about presentations, really get anxious about networking, is you have to find a way. It For one, it's an iterative process. It really is an experiment. You have to find a way of doing it that works for you. So networking doesn't have to be forcing yourself to go and talk to a group of people and introduce yourself and show them how amazing you are. It can be something a bit more casual, just like at a conference, reading a poster and just asking the sort of the creator, sorry, I didn't understand this bit. What's going on? And then just letting the conversation lead from there. Or
and
I
see what's
think,
going on. What is the research that out there, or what are the companies out there? What are the new ideas?
yeah,
Um, because we don't know many times, right? We don't know because if we just live in our bubble, in our lab, we don't know what else is out there. Maybe we like it more, or maybe you can find nice collaborations. If you want to keep working on academia, for example, maybe you'll find someone that struggled with similar experiments and how do they solve it, or or something that they have, like they have expertise in different techniques that we don't, but it would be very useful for our research. We can have like a partnership here. um, Ideally, I think that's the thing, it's seeing what's out there, and it can be academic or non-academic. And for example, for us that we are in the academic world, it is really nice to see what is the non-academic world, because we'd never get in touch with it, right?
yeah,
We just need to search to see how does it work, what it is like, what are the options. Because for me, for a long time, science was just
being in the lab.
working, being in
Yeah,
the lab, and there's more than that, and you have been exploring it, right?
I think as well, when you go to these events, it doesn't have to be conferences. Um, you can, networking events. I think they call them spin out on startup incubator events. Um, go to sort of anything that a society puts on. You find the conversation will it'll just simply by being there, the conversation happens organically. But also, in a lot of instances, they kind of they they almost force conversation,
Hmm.
not in a bad way, but just by being, just by being in a room with someone, or sitting next to someone having lunch, a conversation will just happen. And I think network, a lot of people get scared about networking, um, but actually it often happens without you even realizing. So going to these events, it will be happening without even making an effort.
It is a bit frightening when you are in a room with a lot of people that you don't know. I remember the first time I've been in international conferences, and I was a bit. and I'm not very shy as well.
Yeah.
But I was a bit like, hi, what do I say to these
Yeah.
people? And
How do I break the ice?
I'm
Yeah.
not like a native English speaker, so it's like, "Ah, maybe I shouldn't say anything. I shouldn't ask anything because I will look stupid." And then I don't. It's a bit frightening,
Yeah.
but my experience is then I ended up meeting people that I find it really nice. I find them really kind
Yeah.
and with very good ideas and projects. And they were asking me things about my work and if I could if I would understand some of their issues, and I was like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you're
It
right.
is.
Scientists love talking about science.
That's
Um,
true.
if you mentioned the more industry side, um,
Hmm.
it's like business individuals, CEOs. They love talking about
Business.
business. Yeah,
Making money.
they love. Yeah, they love talking about whatever their responsibilities are. They love talking about themselves. Everyone loves talking about themselves. Ask people. That's my that, it's always difficult to break the ice, but the easiest way to do that is just ask someone about themselves, and that's putting well, not pressure, but it's putting the balls in their court to to network at that point,
Yeah,
and
and a
then
lot of times they give their advice as well, which is really good. So if you want
yeah,
to follow this path, maybe that is the right direction,
yeah,
or give out tips about what to do next or what they have done. Because a lot of times what you say, they talk about themselves, about their life, and then you can think of, okay, this person to achieve this position has followed this path, so you can think about it. You can actually collect a lot of information from different ones and see what's in common. Maybe there's something in
yeah.
common, and maybe that's the direction if you want to try or pursue that area.
I think you raise
um,
a really good point there because a lot of PhD students don't know what they want to do after their PhD, and I was certainly in that position when I started my PhD. But you've got to narrow down the list of ideas you have by talking to people in these fields and learning their experiences, getting advice from them on how they made it work, um, and just learning from every interaction that you're part of. I think you make a good point.
And many a times, I think what it is interesting to see that we meet people that we say that they are successful people, and we realize that there's many failures in the way.
Yeah,
So there was many up and downs and things that didn't work, and try to figure it out. So which is motivating as well when we think, okay, I'm going to get out of this bubble, which is scary
yeah,
because it's something I'm not used to. So I will probably fail many times, or but that's probably the most common thing.
yeah. No one's career path is linear. I love going. I think one of my favorite things to go to is career talks because you get to see how they went. They didn't just go up and up and up. They jumped from here and then they kind of went down a little bit in their next role, but then they went up the equivalent of 2 grades, but then they had to go down and then they were kind of plateaued for 10 years and then they had a massive jump up in role and then they left this industry entirely and then they came back 10 years later. And it's, it's so interesting. It's really interesting hearing how other people's journeys have played out,
In,
but also you can really learn a lot from these interactions and it gives you, I guess, a peace of mind that even if even if I go down at any point or I stagnate for a long period of time, there will be a point at which I can then jump up or jump up two positions, or there will be some kind of light at the end of the tunnel, and
it's
that's
not a
all of these
linear
talks.
line. It
Yeah,
is not a linear line, straight. We don't go from A to B in a straight line. Never in our life. Yeah, and actually, related with this, many times you mentioned that one valuable thing is to focus on your self development, which I
yeah,
assume that is something that you have been working on, that help you fulfilling making these fulfilling decisions about your future. So what do you work more about yourself? Is there something you'd like to share that you think is a good option,
yeah.
good idea?
Um, do you mean what are my sort of top pieces of advice for self development?
Yeah. So which, for example, the
Or is it more what
the
have I been focusing on predominantly kind of thing?
what you have been focusing on, and from those ones, which ones so far you think, in your opinion, are the most valuable
Valuable,
ones?
yeah. Um, so I think one thing I've been a lot more mindful of recently is certainly my writing capability, but more so demonstrating my writing capability. So I, I mentioned earlier I want to go into patent law after my
Mm-hmm.
PhD, and it involves a lot of writing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I've certainly over the last 6 months, I've been more aware that I don't necessarily have any demonstrations of my capabilities as a writer. So
Okay.
um,
But why
back
do you think
in,
that you're afraid of?
it's more just to, I guess it's more just to make myself stand out a little bit more. So I've applied to uh, a few patent attorney summer internship type
Okay.
things, and wasn't successful in any of them. Um, was that because I wasn't able to demonstrate writing ability? I don't think so, but it's still just another. It's another kind of skill to have in on my LinkedIn or on my CV that can
Mm-hmm.
hopefully make the an employer's decision whether to hire me a little bit easier than what it would have been previously. So I was really proactive about trying to write a paper. So I published a review paper in April. So that was I started writing that about 6 months ago. But 3 months ago, I started writing a blog, also aware of the same process of needing to demonstrate a writing capability, but um, also because it was something that's I've wanted to do for a long time and have always been putting off. It's one of those things where you sort of say, "Oh, I don't have time to do it. I'll do it next year, or I do
Mm-hmm.
it after my PhD." And
Mm-hmm.
I kind of realised there's about a dozen things that I say this for. I always say I'm going to wait till after my PhD, but actually, after my PhD, I'm going to have something equally as hectic on my plate, and then after that, I'll probably have something also equally as hectic that takes up an equal amount of time. So actually, there's never a good time to start anything like that. So just I think what I'm certainly learning the process. So just almost do first and kind of
Mm-hmm.
learn as you go. Treat it like an iterative approach.
Mm-hmm.
And if you start and what because I sort of said when I started the blog, if I get started and then realize I don't have time for this anymore, there's no shame and no embarrassment in just dropping it because at least you tried. Um, I think that's the same with a lot of the personal development events that I go to. If I if I attend and don't get any value from it, at least I went to them. Like you don't know if you're going to get value unless you actually go.
What you said about doing, just do it. This reminds me of a book. Do you know the book Eat That Frog?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've never read it that frog, but yeah,
That's about procrastination, and that's about, so many times we just postpone these kind of decisions
yeah,
because sometimes we don't know how to start. It's probably is more likely to be the task that we will
yeah,
procrastinate more. So in this book, it's about guiding people on eating that frog, the first thing you do. So as you mentioned, and perfectly, is like instead of delaying this for the end of your PhD,
yeah,
you are going to do it now because yeah, you can fail, you don't know, but or maybe you won't be able to finish, and you can just stop or quit as you prefer. But just the fact of doing it, it's the most important and fulfilling
mm.
aspect of it. You will that's a tick. When you mention after your presentations that you feel
You
that
feel
adrenaline feeling,
yeah, you feel like that buzz, don't you? Yeah,
that the author mentioned that in the book, the hormones that are released after we accomplish a task that was more likely to be the hardest one, or the one that we were fearing the most. So this is really cool that you're saying just do it, tick. It's a
Yeah,
tick, and that's going to motivate you to keep doing and keep growing and developing your skills.
I
That's
think
exactly.
yeah. You mentioned procrastination. It's you're procrastinating because you care, which is a really good sign. And you care, and you're worried about um, a some kind of discomfort or negative emotion that could be conferred from the task or the failure of the task. It's that fear of discomfort. But that's I think when people realize that you're procrastinating because you care, you're worried about the discomfort, you can almost reframe this mindset. Reframe your mindset on this as a result of knowing this is something important to you, and just do it as a result of this reframing.
And usually the problem is usually that what's important for us, failing that is the worst thing, right? If we fail in something that is not that important,
You don't if yeah.
we deal with it easier, right? It's easier to deal with it.
Also, if it's not important, you're just significantly less likely to procrastinate it in the First place. So it's encouraging that you want to procrastinate or you're feeling the need to procrastinate in the first place.
It's just to be aware of it. Okay, I'm
Mm.
procrastinating. Why? Yeah, that you mentioned because you care. Okay, good, because this is something that is important for me.
Yeah.
Okay, just it's important for us to think and remember that every time we are procrastinating. So, Callum, do you have any kind of mentorship guiding you during this PhD and to help you with your future? Did you did you try to find someone to work as a mentor?
Um, so I'd say mentors for me, they're not necessarily someone I've sought out. They're
Hmm.
individuals who have just sort of become individuals who have just become mentors, not not through them trying to be a mentor or me looking for them to fill a mentor position. They're individuals who've um, just they could have had a completely different relationship with me, but there's someone who over time or um, just through an interaction I've realised they're individuals I can learn a lot from, and they're people I need to look up to, people I need to be asking questions to. So I think in a lot of cases, um, your supervisors can be your mentors.
Hmm.
So my supervisors are Alice Roffney and Alan Goddard at Aston University. Um, you don't go into the interaction of that student supervisor relationship thinking thinking of them as mentors in the more traditional sense. But I think certainly over time you come to realize your supervisors are people you fall back on, people you ask for advice, people you ask for you ask for support, and they almost go on to fulfill a mentorship type role, and that's certainly what my supervisors have done. So I haven't actively sought out mentors; they've formed um, as a result of interactions I have with individuals daily. So I do really appreciate them for all the help they've provided.
Do you think that
Addition,
their mentorship? Ah, sorry. Just go on. Go on.
sorry, yeah, I was going to say. Additionally, certainly at Aston, there are some incredibly impressive people, incredibly supportive people, and I think being in that, certainly at any university, you're going to be around some of the smartest people in the world. Um, Speaking of the academics, maybe some of the other PhD students, and using them as sort of a these other academics, these other incredibly smart people as pseudo mentors um, is something I've certainly gained a lot of value out of. So I'm going to name drop Rosalind Bill, for instance.
Hmm.
Rosalind Bill is a legend.
She's a
Um,
professor at Aston University.
yes, yeah, thank you. Sorry, I forgot to mention. She's a bit of a legend. She's an excellent personality. She has a lot of I'd say a lot of charisma, excellent interpersonal and social skills, but
Hmm.
also is incredibly smart, paired with excellent interpersonal and social skills and charisma. Um, so just by hanging around Ros, I feel like I've gained a lot of value. I've learned a lot about almost holistically from her experiences and the stories that she's shared. But also, everyone's
And I
so
think that
supportive.
she's
Yeah.
like I call her like a science mom,
Oh
but
yeah.
she's also like
I've heard a
a
few people
person
call
that
her a
try
science mom.
to that's she looks at people and see their strengths,
Yeah.
and they try to figure out what's the best for you. So she was also my co-supervisor. Alan Goddard was my main supervisor, and I always felt that they were always trying to develop my strengths, to focus on what I want to do, what I like to do, and never block the way for me to just keep going in the direction that I like. For example, with the podcast, the idea of the podcast, the first season, this is the second season, the first season I had this idea and I shared with them, and they were extremely like, positive. Yeah, let's
Supportive
do
about it.
it.
Yeah.
Supportive and open to record episodes with me. So they record in the first season. They have been recording now in the second season. They give me ideas of other people to invite for the podcast. Rosalind, actually, when I was finishing my PhD, and I was telling her I'm a bit, I don't know what to do, and
Yeah.
I did wrong during my PhD. So instead of what you're doing, that is trying to figure it out, what you like to do the most for the next. I haven't done it, and Rosalind, I went I talked with her, and she said like, so just give me a bullet point. Just give me some bullet points of things you imagine yourself doing in 10 years, and then I'll figure it out and try to see the people that I know, and try to help you with that. So, which is incredible. That's incredible. They are people that they just don't care about their curriculum, just
Yeah.
about their papers, just about their research group. They also want us to find the best job for us. What's the best for
Yes.
us?
Yeah. People want the best for you. Uh, you being just everyone. I think you don't need to proactively seek out a mentor because mentors will pop up when I guess when you need them or when you're ready for them. They will just be there in the form of speaking to the right academic, speaking to the right member of staff at the university.
It's also something about looking for people that we like and that have a similar that have they do their job or what they do in their career, or their career path is something that is inspiring for us. So if they inspire us in a way, let's just try to meet them.
Yeah,
This networking thing, like
learn
let's
from
see,
them. Yeah,
learn from them and see how was their experience, and um, that will open probably many doors for us in the future.
I think you make a good point there for people who aren't necessarily as close with their supervisors because I appreciate that not all supervisors have been as good to their PhD students as like Alice and Alan have been for me, or
Yeah,
like Alan and Ros were for you.
yeah.
Um, I think there's even if you're not looking to your PIs for that mentorship, there are other people that you can look to for support or advice or guidance, such as people who are inspirational to you, whether that be individuals you meet at conferences, other members of staff around the department. Um,
And
and I
also,
think,
LinkedIn is a good platform to find
yes, yeah,
people.
100%. I reckon in the last week alone, I've messaged at least a dozen people saying, you're a role model to me.
Oh, and
And
imagine,
when you flatter someone's, stroke someone's ego a little bit, they're more inclined to chat with you and give you advice anyway.
and that it's amazing that people answer many times. They answer. It's the same now with the podcast. I invited people that they don't know me, and I invited, and I'm like, okay, they will think that I'm crazy. They
Yeah,
will ignore me, and the answer, they're positive. It's a
yeah.
positive answer, and it's like, wow, okay, this is amazing. There's incredible people out there.
I think in a lot of cases as well, a lot more people than you realise are driven. sort of like me, are driven a little bit by novelty. Um, so if you get a message out of the blue asking to be on a podcast or asking for some career advice, it's just something a bit different, a bit novel. It has that excitement to it, so they're more likely to help out anyway. And that's one when I'm messaging someone on LinkedIn or connecting with someone new. It's certainly one thing that I'm mindful of. This is a bit different for them, and hopefully they're like me in that they like new experiences.
Yeah, the ones that will answer probably are those ones, right?
And they're my
If
type of
you,
people. Yeah.
yes, then we select. That's a good way of selection.
Yeah.
Going to your blog, I came across one of your blog posts titled "If I Had to Start My Personal Development Journey All Over Again," and this is actually a very catchy title, and you summarize 5 bullet points that I think it's like we could discuss a bit them.
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing that the last one is, well, there was one that is to drink less alcohol, and that's incredible.
I'm getting there.
And then there's another one, the last one that is you would set smarter goals. What does it mean setting smarter goals? What do you mean with it?
Yeah. I think the blog post you're referring to is probably one of the ones I've enjoyed writing. But
Huh.
I enjoy writing the more reflective pieces a little bit more. So for me, so smart being specific, measurable, attainable, no, attainable, realistic, time based. Can't remember the last E and R off the top of my
The
head.
last one is set smarter goals. So the third one was cut back on drinking
Yeah,
sooner, set smarter goals, put less pressure, appreciate the value
yeah,
of little and often more, um, get better routines. The
yeah,
better
yeah.
routine.
And then, oh yeah, smart goals. So I've just double checked it. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time based. And then the last two, evaluated and reviewed. Probably the reviewed being the most important, that
Oh, so you're
reflective
talking
element.
about the
The
blog
acronym,
posts.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I thought it was
No,
this blog
so
post.
yeah, setting smarter goals. I think for me, certainly compared to maybe 2, 3 years ago, I had
Hmm.
a loose idea of goals in my head, but they weren't planned, they weren't documented. I didn't have any of this written down. So for instance, I started my blog uh, back in March. That's something I've always wanted to do, but it was always one of those things. It was just in the back of my mind. It was sort of oh yeah, it would be cool to start a blog, but it wasn't until it was on paper. Once it's on paper, you can start to break down the goal into sub goals or sub tasks that need to be completed to then go on and achieve that goal. So for me, writing the blog, um, once I had this written down, I was able to kind of visualize what the steps to get there. So um, subtask number one, find the best platform for your blog. Subtask number two, identify what you want your blog to be about. Number three,
Hmm.
reflect on what you want your goals and objectives for the blog to be, for instance. And unless you really have these goals um, a little bit more tracked, then you're not going to
It's
have that
easier.
same you're not going to have that same drive and motivation, but also that you're not going to have the same I guess level of efficiency towards towards achieving the goal or in the undertaking of the tasks required for that goal, um, unless you have some kind of plan of action to get there. If the ideas are just in the back of your head, so certainly me speaking to um, Callum from 3 4 years ago,
Hmm.
if I'd say to him, if the ideas are just in the back of your head, um, when are you gonna actually do something about these goals that you've been wanting to achieve. Um, when you're going to, start taking them seriously, and I think taking them seriously, the first step is making them smart, making them smarter goals. Um, and since
The
I
start
think
is always the
since
hard, right?
yeah,
The
I
hard
think
bit is starting.
certainly since making the goals smarter, the the progress I've made towards them has been exponential since having them written down. Because now you can break down each task into a. It's not it's not just a goal anymore, but it's a plan, it's a project, and the nature of it now being a plan means uh, it's going to get done. So
Mhm.
some of the goals are particularly ambitious, but just having an idea now, I've got a plan on how to get there. They've almost become a little bit less ambitious and a bit more realistic.
Okay, I understand what you say. This reminds me of that there. I think that people that usually start a business,
Yeah,
for example, my husband, he founded a company. He's a founder of his company that he started when he was doing his masters, so
yeah,
a while ago. And now I talk with him about a lot of ideas that I have. And he's
business
the
ideas or
first ideas that I have about doing projects,
oh
creating
yeah,
new
yeah,
things, novelty things. Um, and he's always starting with the negative aspects of it, or asking me questions like business related, as you say, like the smarter thing, like what's the best way of, okay, how do you
how are
want
you
to
going to
do
measure
this,
this?
what
Be
is
more
your
specific.
audience,
Yeah,
who do you talking to, how much money do you need it, do you need investors or you don't need investors, you don't want investors, ideally. So but all the, like, everything is very hard and is going to be really complex. And sometimes I have the feeling that, and I ask him, so if you knew all of this now, like, how did you start a company in the beginning? You had to
mhm,
face all
yeah,
of these challenges. It's the same, like, now you say, like, I would set smarter goals, yeah, but you had to start f- from scratch, right?
yeah,
And then you had to face all these challenges and find the solutions for the challenges and realize what's the best strategy. So starting, I think, is the best, the first thing and the most important thing. Of
it's
course,
starting. Yeah,
it's good when people help you with the negative aspect, but it's everything is just negative, and we just, this a lot of times just remove all the motivation or makes us believe that, okay, I will never be able to start this project, I will never be able to create the develop this idea, because there's so many negative aspects on the
yeah,
business related, and you don't know, because if you're starting this from scratch, would you know? We have to experience it and
yeah.
do it, no?
I think there's value in having that more negative perspective, but you're right in that there needs to be a balance, and also when you're starting a business, you have like you have to be optimistic because if you think your business is gonna fail, then why are you starting it in the first place? So you need to almost push that negative back just for a little bit until your business is underway, and then maybe start thinking a little bit more um, balanced, I guess.
Yes, every time I share with them ideas, first I need to be in a very positive day.
Yeah,
And then I need to think that, okay, this is a neutral opinion, and
yeah,
these are aspects that I will probably have to face. Doesn't mean um, that this cannot allow me to not even try,
yeah,
to stop me from trying. That's important as well, and which I think is very important every time when you're talking with someone that has ideas. Please be kind.
yeah. Be open-minded to their ideas. Yeah,
Hi. Okay, and going back to all the things you do, extra lab, uh, and research.
yeah,
So you, as I mentioned in the beginning, you are very proactive on LinkedIn,
yes.
which is a very good thing that you do.
That's an interesting
Uh,
story. Yeah.
that's an interesting story. Okay, let's go.
Well,
Let's
it's
listen to
more
this.
so. I remember applying for the. It was I didn't start using LinkedIn properly until about a year ago. A year ago, it was June 2023 was when I first started properly posting on LinkedIn. I'd always used it previously for sourcing when I was in recruitment, but I never posted. And it was when I was starting um, my application for I went to the Science and Economic Development Parliamentary Links Day last year. And as part of the application for that, I had to submit I guess you could call it sort of a one-page personal statement type thing. And I remember planning the personal statement and brainstorming ideas. And I know I've done a lot of personal development type stuff and a lot of stuff in the policy space, um, but I just couldn't remember. I just couldn't remember all these things that I'd done, and I needed something more, almost like a journal, like a diary uh, of the more career slash personal development related tasks. So it was in that moment when I was writing this personal statement for the parliamentary day application. That was when I realized I need to be more active on LinkedIn, because this LinkedIn, it's whilst it is nice to get likes and impressions and people following you, it's it's like for me it's like a diary or a journal of my career, and of the steps I've taken, from a personal and self development perspective. Um,
And the things that you like,
yes,
and
yeah,
then you
I
build
enjoy writing. I enjoy going to events. It's
for
yeah. I look back at the pictures of all the events, um, and I guess it's
this.
yeah. It's
This
just
is very
it's another social
valuable.
media, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is very valuable, and that's very good of you because you do what you like, and it's important. It's a good advice to think, okay, just do what you like, and if you don't know what you like, just explore different things like you do, and if until you find something that you like, then just keep doing it, just embrace it, instead of focusing on the things that we don't like. Just try to figure out what we like to do, what gives us motivation and
Yeah,
enjoyment, and just keep going with that.
yeah.
And so, speaking of
So I
LinkedIn,
derailed you on your question there. Well, what were you going to ask?
hmm?
We started off asking a question, and then I went off on a tangent about my why I decided to start a LinkedIn.
No, it was actually that's what I'm
Oh,
going to
okay.
ask now.
Yeah,
So in our in on LinkedIn, I saw that you reposted a post from Andrew Akbashev.
yeah.
I don't know how to say the name properly.
Who
That
knows? You might
he
be
writes
right.
a quote. He wrote a quote that he thinks that is a myth, and the quote is, "For a PhD, find a topic that excites you, follow your passion." But he says that this is a myth and this is not his advice. What, and I believe that you agree with this
Yeah.
sentence. What is your opinion about it?
So it's certainly something I heard a lot when applying for my PhD. Apply for a topic that excites you. Apply for a topic related to your passion. Um, Trouble is, at that point, um, you've only been in. You might have only been in science for 3 years if you're coming straight from undergrad. Maybe 4 years if you've done a master's as well. You you haven't been in science long enough to know what your passions are yet. How do you know which topics you enjoy? You might. I mean, I'm talking in the majority of cases, having spoken to peers and other people along the process of undergrad, masters, and PhD. Um, so I think the advice of apply to a project you're passionate about is is just a little bit silly, because how do you know? Some people it might be you might just instantly know, but in a lot of cases, how do you know what you're passionate about? And your passions change over time. So I think um, there's a few things you have to take into account when applying for PhDs, but whether the topic is something you're passionate about is not one of those things. Um, so I think it's more important that even if it's not necessarily the the topic that you should be picking, the wider research area should be something that you're interested in. So, for instance, I um, I would not be able to do a sort of a fundamental project. It would need to be applied because what motivates me is the significance, the end goal of this avenue of research, rather than just science for science's sake. I think that's important. You need to identify um, aspects of a project or aspects of science that you enjoy and you find value in. Um, I think another thing is for some people it could be certain techniques. So I my master's projects I did a lot of um, electron microscopy. I really enjoyed that technique, so it's something I was kind of filtering for or narrowing down in my application for PhDs. Um, but then also, I think a really important one is the people you work with, and this goes for any job. This isn't just
That's
PhDs.
yes.
You, you're going to be spending a lot of time with your supervisors. You spend a lot of time with the other people in the lab, and the sort of PhD cohort at the respective university. Um, and I think it's really worth doing the research on the supervisors first, if anything, rather than the project. So, for instance, say my project was 4 years ago when it was being advertised. Um, I didn't do this, and it was certainly something that going back, I wish I was done. I think I'm very lucky in that Alice and Alan have turned out to be absolute legends.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I agree. It was the same with me.
yeah,
But
re-
that's my advice.
yeah,
The place where you work, it's very important. You have to feel that you are part of the group. That you, the culture, the mindset, it matches with your culture and your mindset. Otherwise, it doesn't matter if you are just using the technique that you love the
yeah,
most. Maybe that's not going to be enough. But as you said, like also thinking of the techniques that you, if it's technique or if it's a certain area, research area, just try to figure it out. What's the area that you like the most? But to know that, we need to try different ones,
yeah.
right? We need to try a bunch of them.
And you're not going to have tried enough if you're when you're applying for PhDs and you might only have an undergrad or a master's worth of lab experience.
No, many times it's just about I finished my master and I have the opportunity to do this PhD, and then you can ask the person, "Do you want to do the PhD?"
Yeah,
I don't know, but I have this facility, this opportunity, and it's paid, so you just grab that opportunity. And after the PhD, so if you don't do the work that you have been doing during your PhD to plan and prepare the future, after your PhD is going to be the same. Like what you're going to do now, I don't know, but I have this postdoc, so I will take this postdoc, and this is going to be like a vicious um,
yeah,
cycle,
yeah,
circle,
yeah, yeah.
and we don't stop to think about is this really what I want to do, and what do I want to do?
I think as well when you go to a lot of careers events and careers talks, they always say that you should email the hiring manager first just to get a bit well, A, sort of get your name known, B, to learn a little bit more about the role. But one thing the careers advisors don't mention is actually the main value of this opportunity to speak to the hiring manager is learning about them. Are they someone you want as your boss? Is this someone you want as your supervisor or your PI? And I think
Yep.
that's something if I was to give my younger self more advice, be more selective about the PhDs you apply to, and email the supervisors first, so you can learn about them as individuals and what their character is, and whether they're someone you're going to get along with.
Actually, Alan used to say exactly the same. So Alan is always saying that when we go to an interview, if I'm going to an interview for a job, for a
Yeah,
post, for a role, I'm also interviewing the people. So I'm also checking if I like the people that is interviewing me. So if I like them, if I like the questions, if I feel comfortable with them, if I feel like okay, this might be a good group to work with, or there's something I don't feel like. So
mm.
when we go to an interview, we have to think that we are also checking if we
Yeah.
like the people that are doing the interview.
It's often difficult to know, certainly at first, if these are going to be people that you will get along with. And certainly from experience, the more interviews I went to, the better I became at judging character in an interview setting. So I know certainly there's been jobs I've done in the past that I probably wish I hadn't done, and that's just because of my inexperience with being able to kind of detect a personality at that point of interview. Um, so it really is just interview experience as well. You need to learn how to work out if someone is going to be good to work with. It's not something that just comes intuitively, and in many cases.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Callum, we are just reaching the end of the podcast, and I would like to ask you. So, because of all your experience and everything that you have been working um, to plan your career, what would be like your top five advice, bullet points of advice for
Yeah,
people that are in similar situations? They don't
yeah,
know what to do, or if they are actually starting their PhD or doing their PhD, or if it's someone outside of
yeah,
academia but they want a change. What's your best advice for them to
yeah.
start planning it?
So for other PhD students, step one: check your emails. Most of the events that I go to, I find out about them through my email because they're on a newsletter, or these events are being advertised by the graduate development school or something similar. Too many students I know just they'll see these emails and they won't read it. They'll go, oh, it looks like spam, delete. I get so much value out of going to all these events, and they're so much fun. I've built a huge network. I've learned a lot. So bullet bullet point piece of advice number one:
Emails.
read your emails, people. Come on. Uh, Number two, um, you have to consider, when in life am I going to have the opportunities to do things like this ever again? Once you're in a career and in role, you don't have the freedom to just spend a week at a conference, or you don't have the freedom to um, travel to the other side of the country for a day just to go to some kind of careers event. So make the most of these opportunities now, um, because they're not going to come again. And trouble is, when you get to if you get to the end of your PhD and you haven't made the most of these opportunities, um, you haven't narrowed down the list of ideas that you want to do post PhD. Because each of these events that you go to helps in you working out what you want to do, what you potentially want to do, or what you definitely don't want to do after your PhD. So you need to be proactive, because there's no other opportunities to make to learn these experiences, learn these lessons. Um, Advice number three: um, learn to leave your comfort zone, and learn that it's okay to leave your comfort zone, because you're just not going to be successful if you are always staying if you're always staying in what you know and what you're happy with. There
Hmm.
has to be times when um, you will have to experience a little bit of discomfort, whether that's presenting at a big conference, um, speaking to someone you find inspirational but are just a little bit too nervous to approach.
Hmm.
Um,
Just give us one step for the first step. Just say hi, and
yeah,
then to
yeah.
meet someone new, for example, and
Well,
then
it's the most anxiety inducing part of the whole experience is the very beginning. Is walking up to this inspirational person, is considering sending them a message on LinkedIn is standing up on in the lecture theatre or on stage just before you've started presenting. And if you consider this anxiety is only a very small part of the entire process, you have to get through that initial bump and it'll be fine after that. So just accept that you will have to leave your comfort zone over that initial bump. And then after that, once you get into a bit of a flow and once you realize it's okay, you'll be absolutely fine. For number four, for people considering PhDs, definitely look into the supervisors, get a gist of their personality before you apply. And then a quick number five,
Stop
cliche, but
drinking
just,
alcohol.
yeah, don't drink as much. No, I was going to say just remember to have fun. Maybe if I hadn't drunk as much, I'd certainly have maximized fun because I wouldn't have spent so many days hungover. But yeah, you got to remember you're doing, you've opted to do a PhD, you've opted to whatever you're doing currently, you've chosen to do that. So appreciate the good parts of the role, the good parts of what you get to do in your day to day. There was a point in which you chose to do this because it was a sensible decision, and
Yeah,
because you were excited by it. Remember that. Remember
yeah.
that excitement.
Mainly during the bad days.
Yeah, or when you're writing up your thesis. You
True.
chose to do this, so it's got to be okay.
And it was for a reason.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that the way to reach the end is going to be easy, but at the end, it's worth it
Hmm,
if that's what you want.
definitely.
Well, Callum, thank you very much for this conversation. I really enjoyed.
Likewise.
Um, as I mentioned many times, you are very proactive on social media. So on your LinkedIn, for example, is probably one of the best, easiest platforms for people to reach you. Right? What's
Yes.
your username?
Yeah. So if you just search into Google, Calum Upton, LinkedIn, Callum spelled with one L, or if you're on LinkedIn, just search Calum Upton. If you want to read my blog, just again search Calum Upton Medium because I use the Medium platform, or head on to Medium and again just search Calum Upton. I think my handle on Medium is at Calum Upton 1345 because apparently there were already 1344 Calum Uptons on the site. So
1, 3, 4, 5. Okay.
yeah, I want to change it to something a little bit easy to remember. They're the best places to reach me.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Callum, for sharing your journey once again. I think it's been incredibly inspiring to hear you about talking about your experience and insights. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Stay curious and keep exploring.
Thank you.
Bye.